A lot of forensics divisions or units do not have the engagement of the sworn personnel. Okay, so sometimes they're being rotated. Others, I believe, are sent there as a punishment. So if I'm sent there for whatever reason and I'm not happy about it, there will be a major disconnect. Or I'm getting ready to retire in about 2 years. I'm just going to ride it out, and as long as y'all don't get me in trouble, we're good. Just do your job.
Hey there, my name's Ashley Church.
And I'm Erin West.
We were once newly promoted crime scene and latent print supervisors on mutual struggle buses as we both simultaneously tried to navigate through the challenges within our forensic units.
Now we run a business where we create tools and resources that we wish we had had to make these transitions easier. We like to talk about the experiences we've had in the forensic field, the good, the bad, and the ugly, in the hopes to create awareness around these issues and move the needle forward to create positive change in the forensic community.
So if you're a forensic professional, regardless of your years of experience, who's not afraid to dive into real, raw, and sometimes uncomfortable topics, you're in the right place.
This is the Forensics Unfiltered podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Forensics Unfiltered. We are so excited to have you guys here as always. We are welcoming a very, very special guest today, Miss Coach Lisa Gilbert from No Nonsense Training Solutions. You guys have seen her at our summits. You've invited her into your homes, into your forensic labs and your forensic units to help with your leadership skills. We love her. We're so excited to have her. Thank you so much for joining us, Miss Coach Lisa.
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be on here with the Forensics Unfiltered Live. And I really want to thank you all. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Ashley, for inviting me into the family. It's been great. It has really been great. And I've just learned so much just from being around the forensics group. So I am happy to be here tonight.
Well, I can tell you the pleasure is all on this side. Every time that I speak to Coach Lisa, it just feels like that pep talk that I needed, you know? So I'm super excited to dive into all the things tonight.
So let's talk. What do we got, ladies?
Well, let's start at the beginning. So for those that don't know Coach Lisa, tell everybody just a little bit about your background and kind of how you got into the path of leadership and training leaders and mentoring leaders.
Yeah, so what interesting enough, I didn't start in training after college. I actually worked in corporate America for many years in areas of finance and collections, and I hated both of those jobs, just hated it. But then one day I was sitting in one of our training classes at the corporation, and I'm watching the trainer, and she looked like she was having this great time, and I'm just like, wow. And so afterward I asked her, I said, so what kind of degree do you need to do this? And she said, oh, education, sociology, and psychology. And I'm like, psychology, because that's my degree from Florida State University. So of course I went straight to HR and said, I need a transfer. And they looked at me like, we're not doing that. I'm like, I want to go to training. You know, they had no openings, but I will tell you, in 6 months they had an opening for a training clerk. I didn't care. I just wanted out. So I spent, filing and everything, but I started learning some things and slowly ended up quality training. And then after that, they sort of phased out their training division. And I really fell into this business. This was not a planned event. I did not consider being an entrepreneur or doing anything like this. But a friend of mine who worked with me at the prior corporation, she was the HR director at the Sun Sentinel newspaper. And she reached out to me. She said, hey, we have to do some harassment training. So that's how long ago this was. She said, and I just need you to come train it. And the book is all here. All you have to do is come train. I said, okay, so do I need an interview? She said, no, I already told him. I'm like, oh. And so it's supposed to be a 6-month contract. It became 6 years.
Wow.
And that was and that's how I learned this. And I'll never forget, her name is Christina Soltez, and I will always be grateful to her because she sort of pushed me here. And so when I was going to get my first check, she says, okay, I need an invoice. I'm like, an invoice for what? I said, just pay me the money. I'm just, just not even thinking. She said, you need to name your business and give me an invoice. So at that time, it was not no nonsense. It was like LK Consulting and Training because my name was Lisa Kemp at the time. So LK Consulting and Training, I didn't know what I was doing. It made no sense, but it sounded good at the time. But it evolved over time to no nonsense. And I actually got that name from police. They were like, Coach Lisa, we like you. You got that no nonsense thing going on. I'm like, really? But it was interesting. The leadership part came when leaders would just reach out to me and just ask me questions. And I seemed to have the answer and they would go try it and it worked. So like in most of my classes, you'll notice I start with something called like my no nonsense wisdom truths. Those are things I've learned over the 26 years, just giving that stuff to leaders. So that's how I really fell into it. And I love what I do. My whole passion is to help leaders do what they do better, especially when they're going through a hard time. I like to be able to step into the fire, if you will, with them to help them do better. That's what I do.
I love that. So it sounds like it was just a very serendipitous thing. And you said Christina was her name?
Christina Soltes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She like knew that was your calling before you did.
You know, I think she did because there were just
awesome.
things that and it was just really so organic. And I'm going to say a divine appointment. Yeah. And it was just so organic and just the way she would come to me. She said, okay, I need you to build a course on communication. I'm like, build a course? I don't know how to build a course. Just give it to me and let me teach you. She said, no, you're going to learn how to do it. And that was the hardest thing I did. But now I am so grateful that she pushed me. You know, go research it. I did not know what I was doing. And when I did my first class, people were like, oh, this is great. I'm like, they don't know. I don't know what I'm doing.
It sounds so much like the beginning of Gap Science.
Yeah, we all
doesn't it?
A little bit of that imposter syndrome. But I think it's funny you talk about, like, Ashley and I joke a lot about, like, she's the yin to my yang, like the things that I kind of lack or struggle with, she brings, that's her piece of it. And it almost sounds like, because I know you're very much like a go-getter, so that she was like, teach a class, you were like, let's just do it. Like, I don't need a lesson plan. I don't even need slides. I could talk about this all day, you know? And she's like, no, you need to put some slides together. So
she did. She said, no, I need you to do it. And I will tell you, you know, because it's been a different kind of journey, because like I said, I didn't set off to do this. So I learned how to research, and I did not realize that research was my strong suit. Because to me, it sounds like analytical. But I learned as long as it's a subject I'm interested in, I will research it to the nth degree, you know? Mm-hmm. And so out of that, a lot of things just happened. And even in between, when I left the Sun Sentinel, I started doing some work with this company called Right Management. You probably heard of them. They work with companies where they're laying people off. And somebody gave them my name. So out of that, because the business was struggling, I wasn't with law enforcement yet. I wasn't there yet. So I worked with them writing, resumes and doing interview training. And so I would go to all these companies where they're laying people off, and here I come. And Ashley, you said something. And when I would come, it was like instinctive for me to say, I understand where you are because I've been laid off 3 times. That's the first connection. And the second connection is, I want to tell you there's life after this company. And they would be like, oh my gosh. And it's so
like goosebumps.
Just pull them out of this dark place and saying, I'm here to help you get there. So that was a whole nother thing I learned on the way. And then there was a guy at my church who was in law enforcement. He was actually the director of the Miami-Dade Police Department. So I just walk up to him one day and I'm like, Robert, I'd like to do training in law enforcement. He says, okay, send me your packet. Let's see what we do. I knew nothing about police, just nothing. And the first day I walked in that room, and it was all guys, homicide, SWAT. Oh, I'm like, what in the world? And they were not looking. They were looking at me like, well, what do you want? What does this chick have to say? It was interesting. But I will tell you, when one guy said to me, I said, so what would you like to take away from the class? He said, I'd like you to get out early. You think you can make that happen?
Yep, we've had that.
Yeah.
We've had the people that just like sit with their arms crossed and stare at you with a scowl, and they're just like, I don't want to be here.
all of them were voluntold. All of them.
Yeah.
And I said, and I'll never forget, I said to him, I said, well, you know, I tell you what we're going to do, sir. You put that gun on safety, and we'll enjoy the ride. How about that? And the whole class, they looked and they cracked up laughing, and that was it.
Yeah.
I started to understand the culture. And for some reason, I understand them. So it's been great. I love working with public safety. I love it.
That's definitely a
love
group that would be drawn to no nonsense type of training for sure. So we heard that's one heck of an origin story and like how you got started with no nonsense training solutions. But how has your approach evolved over the years, and what drew you to work eventually with forensic units?
The main thing about what makes our classes different, and you all have experienced, is that I always wanted to facilitate a conversation. I didn't want to lecture. Never the lecture, but if I get you all involved, that actually increases the retention. So when I'm coaching other trainers, I'm like, as much as you can, let them join you in the teaching. Give them something to do. Have the conversation. And so that's what evolved over the time. And that's what all the feedback kept saying. It just seemed like the course was organic, but I was really following the script. It just felt that way to them. We covered every topic. They just didn't know I was covering it because they were talking. Mm-hmm. And Christina taught me that too. She said, what you do is let them talk until you know where you're going next. Because she was very much like me, that sometime I'm like, I didn't even study the work. She said, that's okay. You'll have 2 or 3 minutes. Let them talk and just read the next page and it'll come to you. It was so. And then
I love that.
So now I'm on the sworn side. And then one day I go to this college called Valencia in Orlando, and I'm having my women's class. That was I think you guys were the second, Erin. And I meet Erin and her group. And so we're just having the training. That was a big class. And so Erin comes up to me and says, oh, this is great. And she's just going, she says, we'd like you to be part of our conference or our summit, something like that. I'm like, okay. I didn't know what I was saying okay to. I know nothing about forensics. I just know y'all deal with like bodies and stuff. Look,
True.
That's what that's what y'all, what fingerprints and stuff. And like, okay, but I can't be there. She says, oh no, it's virtual. I'm like, oh. So it was this connect, and what Erin and I clicked so much, and probably you too, Ashley. Erin would not let up. I'm so happy she didn't. She was emailing me. She was calling me, Coach Lisa, remember, I need this. A lot of people don't like it. I need that. Not only do I need it, I love that, because I'm like, oh my gosh, please keep me involved. Because through the first time I did the summit, the day it went on, we were flying. I don't even know where we're going, but we were in the airport and our phone started like blowing up because the summit had started. And all these people were like, can we talk to you? Can we talk to you? We got conflict. I'm like, look at Erin and Ashley. What? Wait a minute. I don't know who I got in my corner here.
That's amazing.
I got some real people over here. They just know what they're doing. And it was from there, Boston and several other places we've been. And what I love about forensics is every place I've been so far, you guys are open to listen if people have something to say. And what I mean is because you all are so I'm dealing with scientists, so that's just odd for me. But for some reason, I'm talking the language and you guys are open. Number two, I don't think you all get the acknowledgement that you all need. And that's a lot with law enforcement. But you all are these behind the scene people solving cases, and it needs to be recognized more. And so when I've worked with you all, I've noticed that you all are very passionate about what you do, very passionate about what you do. But there's also just those different facets. There's also some difficult people within that. And I don't mean that as a negative. Am I saying that wrong? Well, this is unfiltered.
So. I think everything you're saying is hitting it the nail on the head. So. Mm-hmm.
And even though, so now for instance, I'm going to talk, so Erin, I'm going to talk about you, and it's going to be good. So I'm going to embarrass you a bit. All right. But Erin's one of the managers or leaders I've met, when I say in forensics, that you have a handle on your people and what they need, and you know how to talk to them, get them what they need, and at the same time, you don't let them, pull the wool over you. You don't let them just do what they want to do. And I don't see that often. What I see in some other departments, is like the manager or, handling scientists or people with kid gloves. And then people are just like out of control. They're doing their job, but it's a whole lot of nitpicking. It's a whole lot of conflict. It's a whole lot of unnecessary stuff, but yet they get the job done. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, I think you've observed this too, and we'll probably talk about it more too, but a lot of us are reporting to sworn chain of commands, which I report to a sworn chain of command, but a lot of times the sworn personnel come in at my level or even lower. So the scientists are reporting directly to, like, as opposed to us, we have supervisors, then me as a manager, then I report to a sworn captain. But a lot of times the sworn people are coming in even lower. And I've had many different supervisors who some were very interested in learning what forensics did and how forensics could benefit the detective units and things like that. And then I've had some who could care less and like didn't know anything about what was going on down there, never checked, never tried to learn any of those kinds of things. And so I think that a lot of departments have some of those struggles too, a little bit.
That is the major thing I see. And I do realize, and I met your captain, she's great, and your major. So when you have that support, that actually makes all the difference in the world. But definitely a lot of forensics divisions or units do not have the engagement of the sworn personnel. And okay, so sometimes they're being rotated. I'm going to say some agencies, they rotate, so they want you to have a 360, 180, whatever. Others, I believe, are sent there as a punishment. I don't know. I mean,
No,
I should have said that.
it's accurate. I mean,
For sure.
That's definitely happening. Like several agencies, the forensic unit is the punishment unit for sure.
See, and I think if that could change, because when I see things like that, I tend to look at things like there's still that corporate part of me that understands if I'm going to be like a major or above or whatever, I need to understand this entire department. So I would have to spend time in every area so I could learn it. See, that's the way I'm thinking. But I don't think it's often used that way in many departments. So if I'm sent there for whatever reason and I'm not happy about it, there will be a major disconnect. Or I'm getting ready to retire in about 2 years. I'm just going to write it out. And as long as y'all don't get me in trouble, we're good. Just do your job.
Yeah, I think it's probably why a lot of forensic units get in trouble, because there is nobody like really giving oversight to what is going on in those units, like really digging in and being like, what are you doing in here? Like there's a lot of kind of like you just said of like, just don't get me in trouble and we'll be fine. And I'm just not going to worry about what you're doing. You guys just keep doing your job. And then nobody's ever checking in on what's actually happening. And that can spiral out of control.
Yeah, I can see that. And I guess it goes back to when I talk in terms of leadership. And if, let's say the leader has been just put there and it wasn't like the best of reasons. So even if they go to command staff meetings, there's not much respect they get, or maybe people aren't listening or caring. That's sort of the feel I get. So a lot of times I'll see some captains, and I haven't met many of the majors, but the captains I've met, some of them, only some, I'm going to say, they're there, but they're not, and they don't really know what to share. I think if I could tell any captain anything, I would really encourage them to learn just a little bit about what you all do, because that in itself can begin to shift their entire focus. To me, that only adds value to you. That's just my opinion, and I'm talking from the outside in. And when you can add value, then maybe you can catch problems early, and then we don't end up, this whole division doesn't end up like in the news and on the paper, plastered all over the place for things like that, because somebody will listen. So that's the challenge I've seen, and it's at most departments.
So you've mentioned already that as you're kind of starting to train in forensics and everything, that you're dealing with a lot of scientists. And so a lot of the leaders that are coming to your class are going to be scientists or technicians that were promoted into the leadership role. And so what is something that you've observed that is kind of a key difference between being someone who's a great technician and becoming someone who's a great leader? Have you like noticed that some people kind of struggle with that transition from one to the other?
Have you heard about The Vault? It's the first ever membership exclusively for forensic training, and we have packed it full of goodies. So get this. You get instant access to over 20 webinar replays on everything from landing a job in forensics to field training to supervision. But that's not all. We're also throwing in some of our top e-courses, our Field Training Officer Virtual Academy, and exclusive Forensic Supervisor Success kits from past virtual summits. And guess what? You get everything mentioned for just $29 a month, or you can grab a whole year for only $300. And we know many forensic professionals lately are paying for their own training, so we want to make sure training is affordable and accessible for everyone. There is fresh content every month, and that also makes it an endless learning opportunity for you. So it's a no-brainer. Join the Vault today and be part of the forensic education revolution. I'll include the link in our show notes, or you can head to our website to learn more. Don't miss out. Unlock your potential with the Vault.
And so what is something that you've observed that is kind of a key difference between being someone who's a great technician and becoming someone who's a great leader? Have you like noticed that some people kind of struggle with that transition from one to the other?
They do. And I've seen that. So the technician, of course, is the one that does the job, that does the latent prints, that does, they go on site, they do all the technical work, the measurements, the whatever, all that stuff they do. And they do reports and things like that. Okay, so they're really good at it. But it's very similar to any other position, if you will. I could have a person that's an excellent individual contributor. I can have an excellent Crim 3, all right? And they're great because this is what they do. But I should not just promote them because they're great and they come to work every day and they have this extensive technical background. I need to step back to see how they handle conflict, because conflict shows up. So are they the one that can rally everybody together and say, okay, everybody, wait a minute, let's sit down and let's brainstorm, and who follows them? I'm always looking at who follows them, meaning who do they influence? So if they can influence the difficult one, I might be looking at a leader. Did that make sense?
Yep.
If they're the one that can calm everybody down when change is taking place, I might be looking at a leader. So the hardest shift I notice for the technicians are that, let's say the Crim 4 is considered the leader, or the Crim 3 is considered the leader. It's different everywhere, whatever. I'm just using that one. They're still doing cases. They're still doing the day-to-day work. Nothing has changed for them. They just have a title, but nothing's changed. And so because nothing's changed, they still can get into conflict situations, and instead of acting like the leader, they act like a fellow employee and we're fighting. So there are things I would say, if I'm looking at a technician, great on the job, but now I need to start training them how to handle conflict. That's a big one. How to deal with difficult people, how to influence people, how to get my message across. And the biggest thing is taking my hands off of some things and being able to delegate to the people around me. And a lot of them don't do that well because they're so like, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine, and I want to make sure it's done well. That's fine, but you got to train the people around you to do it. So a lot of them we used to call them working managers. So they have the leadership position, but they're the working manager. And a lot of them do it because they're comfortable doing it. Sometimes there's not enough bodies, so they have to do it. But the biggest thing is they don't handle conflict well. And with some I've seen, and some I've had to talk to, say, I want to tell them, you can't be part of the gossip mill. You can't do that. Because, when we're close and we all work together, but when you become the leader, now you have to shift. The mindset has to shift. And that's really hard for some of them. Yeah. That's really hard. But the few that will reach out for help, those are the ones that can really transition. So I
love that.
I just step back and see who handles conflict. Who do they follow? And when they follow them, are they following the right person, or are they following the right one, or is this the toxic technician? Did you hear what I said? The toxic one, they're great at what they do, but they are so toxic.
Yep. They want to pick all the fights, and yep, they're just like everything, all the decisions that they're making, it always has to do with conflict. It's pretty much. But we see that all the time working supervisors. It's kind of crazy that you've just had this like outside perspective of forensics, and it's like this is the stuff we've been saying for so long, but when you have someone outside looking in to shed some light on these things, I think it's so beneficial. So many people need to hear this.
Yeah.
That we are big believers that just working supervisors, it doesn't work. They don't function as a proper leader in the unit. And it's interesting too, because when you look at the sworns, like people on the same level, they're sworn, maybe sworn detectives, sworn officers, they're allowed to just be the leader, the supervisor. They just take that role. And it's interesting with especially civilian forensic supervisors. Like you said, they're just given a title, but they're just still doing all the technical work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They make a point too to clarify a lot of times when the civilians are promoted that they are working supervisors, which is, you know, what does that even mean? It's interesting that this topic came up because we literally put together this class for some of our conferences this year. So if you guys are going to see us at IAI or any of the conferences, you can come to that lecture. We're actually doing a lecture that says, if you're doing their job, then who's doing yours? Yes. But I think the perspective that you brought up, because I have, like you said, I'm the manager and I have 4 supervisors that supervise the different units under me. And I've had to talk to those ladies about your job isn't the metrics anymore, or like finishing the casework anymore. Your job is the people, and the people are your metric now. So the more successful your team is, you know, and the more you're providing them what they need so they can be successful, the more that is, those are your numbers now. It's not, I finished my cases, I did this many examinations, I went to this many calls or whatever, but it's hard to transition from that technician mindset of like, I'm just hitting my metrics, my stats, my numbers, to now it's all about this team, and this team's performance is my metric now as the leader.
Yeah, that is so very true. And you know what? If you're doing their job, then who's doing yours? And I'm like, but then if you're doing their job, why do we need them? You know, so it's making that delineation, and I think it's hard for them to see. So Aaron, if that's what you're doing, it's almost like you have to put together, okay, here's what this looks like. You're going to have to now allow, and I think this is the fear. I'm going to call it what it is, fear. And some of them become very micromanagement minded because it's their numbers. But when you step into the leadership, you got to step back and begin to trust people. And it's a process to do that, because now their output is your success or your downfall. So I'm always telling leaders, now other people you have to trust them to help you. You have to trust them to do what they're supposed to do. You really do. And if you can't trust anybody just to do their job, or if you're not willing to teach them or show them the way you want it done and then allow them to do it, you're going to really, really, really struggle. And I saw a picture the other day of, it was on LinkedIn, a captain shared it. And I said, oh, Captain, that was great. And it was about micromanagement. So it was saying it had a leader and like a bicycle, like 4 people on a bicycle. And the leader was on the back, and they were all pedaling and they're going the same direction, and everybody was smiling. But then it had the micromanager, same bike, 3 people this way, and the micromanager pedaling the other way. And the people were just like frustrated. And so I think people don't understand, when we become the leader, the focus changes. So the leader has to influence. The leader has to be about making it clear for the people. It's almost like you have to put I'm going to say like a checklist down. So like in my leadership class, I said, okay, this is the manager and this is the leader. And you have to have both mindsets on. But as the manager, I'm doing reports and things. But as the leader, I'm trying to innovate to make things easier for the team. But if I'm still doing the same reports, I can't even innovate. I can't look at what they need to do or not need to do. As a leader, I need to be able to step back and say, are we doing redundant work here? But if you're still a technician, you'll keep doing the redundant work because that's what you're used to. The thing is, we become comfortable. And I see that a lot with scientists because they're very analytical in nature. Things are very black and white. So it's like, and so they can get very comfortable with that. This is the fact, this is it, and this is what we do. And very hard to pull them out of it. If they can just take the mindset, okay, my job now is to help them be successful. And if I help them be successful, they'll help me be successful.
So what do you think are some things that people that want to step into leadership roles can kind of do to be better prepared for when they get promoted?
First things I always tell people, you need to know what you're very good at, your strengths and your limitations. You need to know that. I'll ask every leader, why do you want to be a leader? Because if you want to be a leader because you want to make more money, you're going to have a hard time. You will make more money, but that will be the only thing that motivates you. You won't be motivated to help people. You won't be motivated to influence the environment. You're going to be very aggravated when people don't just come to work and do their job. Why are they acting like a bunch of kids? Your job is to influence a change. So know your strengths, know your limitations. Why do you do this? And the biggest thing I'm finding more and more and more in leadership, and I'm going to start teaching it more, building courses around it, is emotional intelligence. That is very key. And the biggest thing is, how self-aware are you of yourself? Do you know how people see you? Do you know that when you're under pressure, the lack of initiative that your team looks at? I always tell the leader, your team is your mirror. So when they call me, Coach Lisa, they're fighting and it's conflict and it's everything, I'm like, they're doing what you do. The leader is the mirror. And then all I have to do is listen a little bit. And then when the CRIM 3, 4, whatever, they're complaining and they're complaining and they're complaining, then that's why they're complaining, because you are. So I would say, take classes, know your level of emotional intelligence. If wherever you're low in, especially like motivation or the other one, if you have a hard time engaging people or delivering tough information, you need to work on those skill levels. Work on being assertive. Work on being a people person. Technical, scientists, they're not real warm and fuzzy. You got to warm it up a bit. Just warm it up just a little bit. Just a little.
I have to do a shameless plug because I've gone to a lot of training in my career. And I mean, this is why I just like hunted Coach Lisa down, and I couldn't let her go, because I feel like there's only a few trainings that you go to where people just like pour into your cup and really like speak into your soul. Like Ashley and I try to go to like outside conferences, like professional development, like whatever, like we try to do like once a year, once every other year, just to fill your cup. But that was how I felt sitting in Coach Lisa's class. Like I sit there the whole class and I'm like, preach the whole class. I'm like, preach. So if you've never been to one of her classes,
I know, I was waiting for people to say hallelujah. I was waiting for them.
I mean, it's amazing. And I mean, we even had people in her class that were absolutely voluntold to be there, didn't want to be there, sitting there with their arms crossed, like whatever. And by the end, we're like, this was the best class ever. So I would highly, highly recommend it if you have never taken one of Coach Lisa's classes.
Yeah, she is speaking our language. We love talking about emotional intelligence. And of course, this is live. So Megan says the shit is deep. I was not ready. And that's how it is chatting with Coach Lisa. And I love it so much. Like Erin said, it just kind of fills your cup up and hits you in the feels, but in a good way. Like, okay, it's like a reality check,
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Think about it. Even though you all are and I'm even changing this. I have already had like 2 police departments change. They don't call their civilians anymore. I said, we need to call them professional staff. They changed it. And it has reset how the civilians, now professional staff, come to work. I was like, oh my gosh, They did it. But the thing is, when you come to one of our sessions, so you all know, we are not having a fluffy conversation. You guys get enough of the fluff. You guys get people like, they just want to circle the airport and circle the airport and circle. Okay, we're going to circle this airport maybe twice, but then we're going to land the plane, because a lot of times, like you said, Aaron, there were people there who were voluntold. They want to be in leadership, but they think they're great. But then when they get in there and they look at that assessment, and I just say things, and they're like, oh, shoot. I've had some of them get kind of angry with me because they thought I was talking about them. And I don't even know them. I'm just speaking to the fact that every leader, even me, I have a coach still. I still go to classes. I'm still getting certifications. I call Aaron for help. I'm calling you guys for help because I don't know everything. And even a difficult situation I had, I called a sheriff friend of mine and like, okay, I need to know how to say this to somebody at your level. So it's just being able to be transparent enough to understand this about yourself, but also understanding, ma'am or sir, you're not the end all be all, and we're not impressed with you. We are so not impressed with you. And I've learned to not be intimidated by people because I'm not impressed with myself like that. And I'm always looking to learn from other people. And if somebody's got something to say, I'm willing to listen. But I also know you all go to this field, law enforcement, public safety. You all are the best trained people in the world next to the military. And so I recognize when you walk in, you all are expecting death by PowerPoint. You're expecting me to talk to you and talk to you and talk to you and never breathe. You're expecting me. You're just doing that. Somebody texted me from a class one time. They were somewhere and they were in day 2. And like, Coach Lisa, I'm ready to slap somebody. I'm like, what? 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 She said, I'm just sitting here and I'm measuring them against you. I'm like, don't do that. Don't. I was like,
there's only one Coach Lisa.
But it was death by PowerPoint, and nobody was engaging with the instructor because what? He was just talking and that monotone and just going on and on and on and reading every statistic that's up there and click the slide. Nobody was people going to sleep. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we've lived it.
Yeah. And I have too. When I go to some class, I'm like, just give me the book. I can read it myself.
Yes. It's so true. It's so true.
Along the same line, because you talked about, just very briefly, but I kind of want to circle back to it. You talked about how some agencies are making that cultural change, right? So they're trying to even just change the verbiage that they use, what title they give their employees. So let's not call them civilians, let's call them something else. So what cultural or structural changes do you think forensics units need to make to develop stronger leaders?
Are you loving this conversation with Coach Lisa so far? Honestly, we love talking to her so much. She has a way of hitting you with hard truths and realities while simultaneously leaving you with your cup so full at the end of the conversation. Be sure to tune in next week as we conclude part 2 of this conversation with Coach Lisa. And until then, we hope you have a great week. Thank you so much for being here and listening to Forensics Unfiltered. If you liked this episode, would you do us a favor and leave a review letting us know specifically what you liked about this topic? It will only take a minute, but it will really help us plan future episodes so we can bring you more topics that you want to listen to. We'll be sure to provide any links from today's episode in our show notes on our website. Head to www.gapscience.com. Until next time, stay safe out there.